When you first start strumming chords on the guitar, there's a tendency to strum pretty much all 6 strings pretty much all of the time. Maybe a bit like this. The beginner's attention is almost entirely absorbed with this hand, getting that chord shape sorted out. And this means that there's very little attention left to actually listen to the sound that's being made. But gradually, as you begin to overcome the pain and discomfort in your fretting hand, you begin to really listen to the sound you're making. And at this point, a number of things start happening. Firstly, almost without consciously trying, you tend to get more exacting with how you place your fingers on your fretting hand. So you're likely to start out sounding like this, quite a sort of dirty, muffly sound, but gradually as you ease the fingers in next to the frets, get them up on their tips, the sound cleans up. Then, once you're satisfied that your fretting hand is doing more or less what it's supposed to, and your chords are getting nice and clean, there's a natural tendency for the attention to come back on to the right hand, the strumming hand, and begin to experiment a bit more with that. Now, as mentioned at the beginning of the course, the most important aspect of the strumming hand action is flow. Regular, rhythmic, natural continuity. And one of the most common mistakes that beginners make is to worry too much too early about picking patterns and strumming patterns. Not careful, this can result in a loss or reduction of rhythmic flow because you're putting too much attention on selecting what to strum. Thinking too hard about down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up. Or maybe you're picking a particular pattern. See, immediately that interrupts the flow of the rhythm. Now what I'm going to ask you to do in this lesson is to begin to add some single note work in with your strumming, but crucially to do this without interrupting the general flow of the rhythm. Now remember in the last lesson when we started separating out the bass and the treble like this, the bottom 3 strings and the top 3 strings. To do is grab hold of an A minor chord as an example, and we'll continue this exercise with the chord instead of the muted guitar. Then gradually thin out this bass end of the strumming until you're just hitting the 5th string on its own, something like this. Notice it's not carefully going because that interrupts the flow. It keeps the hand free moving. We don't care if sometimes we miss it a bit and hit the bottom string instead. As long as we hit it most of the time, that's all we're aiming for. The reason I've I've chosen the 5th string for the A minor chord is to isolate the root note. Now the root note is simply the note after which the chord is named. This diagram shows you where to find the root notes for the main open A chords, A major, A minor and A7. Right, now we're interested in the lowest root note, and as you can see for all 3 chords this is the note on the open A string. The habit we want to get you into in this lesson is to isolate the root notes of each open chord that you're used to using and use them as bass notes to work with the strumming pattern. Something like this, say for A minor. Change to the C chord, I want to pick out the C root note. Notice that as I change back to A minor, the bass note changes even though I'm still using the same string, the 5th string. So the note is changed by the fretting hand changing the chord shape. Now let's add in a G chord. Notice that this time we need to find the root note on the 6th string. String these changes together. So we'll start with the A minor, A minor, C, G. I think that already sounds a lot smarter than simply strumming all 6 strings, doesn't it? So the next step is to practice this idea with all the open chords that you already know. If needed, you can download a printout from the toolbox to the right of the screen that shows the position of all the root notes for all the commonly used open chords. Once you've made yourself familiar with the root notes of your favourite open chords and got used to picking them out as bass notes, the next step is to start linking the bass notes together in little runs, something like this. So we go from strumming to picking out bass notes, and now we start linking those notes. approaches to the task of finding the right notes to link these bass notes together. The right brain approach is just to use trial and error and use your ears to judge what works and what doesn't. For example, we might think in terms of linking from A to C. Try that note there. Doesn't sound so good on its own. That naturally sounds right to me. Maybe we could include that one if we sort of went for it a bit quicker. So that would work as what we call a passing note, but on its own doesn't sound quite right. That's quite nice, as opposed to sounds a bit odd, that, yeah, so probably that note rather than that one. That works quite nice, I quite like it. Or and so on, little by little, homing in on the things that work and leaving out the things that don't. More left brain inclined, then simple logic can be used to decide which notes to link your bass notes with. For example, if your first chord is A minor and your bass note is at A there, and then you're linking to C, well, you could ask yourself the brain taxing question, what letter of the alphabet comes between A and C? And work out that the answer is B. A, B, C. Can't get any easier than that. Happens to be the first three notes of the A minor scale. Or if you've learnt a few scales, these might be used to work out perhaps some more complex links. From the A natural minor scale, for example, the C major scale. Whoops. Or even the chromatic scale. Don't worry if you haven't learnt any of these scales yet. This information is available elsewhere on the site, and in particular on the theory courses, which you can always start working on anytime in conjunction with the practical lessons on this site. I should point out actually that although the theory courses are posted in the advanced section of the site, they can in fact be worked on at any stage. It's also absolutely fine to continue to work by trial and error alone, as long as you listen to the result and let your ears decide what works and what doesn't. This approach actually helps strengthen your musical hearing ability. Now, as well as linking bass notes, there's no reason why you shouldn't use other notes with the chords to link in what I would call a melodic fashion. Maybe something like this. Find eventually leads into a nice natural integrated style that combines melody and chord in a recognisable way. Maybe something like this. Encourage you to explore every chord sequence you learn and experiment with first isolating and emphasising the bass notes to each chord, and then looking for other links that may be appropriate to the particular song you're playing to link together one chord to the next using bits of melody or bits of scale, and as always using your ears as the judge of what's right and what's wrong. This way, you will soon develop your own unique style that will make you stand out from the crowd. In the next lesson, we're going to take a much closer look at the subject of muting. Now, this is the one technique which, once mastered, really does make the difference between you sounding like an amateur guitarist and a professional. So I look forward to seeing you in that lesson.